Hi Grade 8s, these are the worked solutions for the evidence of learning for Week 1, Lesson 3, Elapsed Time 2. Looking at question 1, Mary starts her homework at 5:15 p.m. and finishes at 6:44 p.m. How long did she take to do her homework? Now when we do any of these elapsed time questions, we want to break it down into checkpoints and start with our beginning time. And from this question, Mary starts at 5:15 p.m. From 5:15 p.m, we need to make our first checkpoint the closest hour after 5:15. And the closest hour after 5:15 is 6 p.m. Our next step is to figure out how many minutes pass between 5:15 and 6, and the answer to that is 45 minutes. So our first checkpoint is 45 minutes. Our next step is to go from 6 p.m. to our final time. And our final time from this question is 6:44 p.m. And just like the first step, how many minutes pass between 6 and 6:44? Well, that's 44 minutes. And our last step is to work out what was the total time from the beginning to the end. And the way we do that is we add our two checkpoints together. 45 minutes plus 44 minutes. And when we combine those two together, we get 89 minutes. Now, 89 minutes, that's an hour and a bit. So we need to figure out exactly how long that is in hours and minutes. And because we know that there are 60 minutes in an hour, if we subtract 60 from 89, we'll get 1 hour. And the leftover is 29 minutes. So our final answer will be 1 hour 29. And because it is a worded question, we would have a therefore answer. Therefore, Mary took 1 hour and 29 minutes to finish her homework. I'm just going to write to finish. And that will be the working out and the answer for question 1. All right, now looking at question 2. Now question 2 is almost even easier than question 1. So John left home at 8:35 a.m. and arrived at school at 8:53 a.m. How long did the trip take? Now there are a couple of ways that you can do this. One way that I explained in the previous lesson was to use the formula total time equals the arrival time minus the departure time. And if we did do it this way, we would have 8:53 a.m. minus 8:35 a.m. and 53 take away 35 equals 18 minutes. And that's a pretty straightforward way of doing it. The other way of doing it, which we just did then, was if you use our checkpoint system, so 8:35 to 8:53 a.m, and that there is 18 minutes. And as you can see, that is exactly the same step as that first one. We're using our checkpoints instead of using our formula. But for both questions, you will still need your therefore. Therefore, the trip took 18 minutes. Now, in an exam, I'd recommend using this formula version here because that is a much neater way of doing it, and you can show all of your working out instead of jumping straight to 18 minutes. That way, if you accidentally get that subtraction wrong, you can still get a mark for having an equal sign and having your formula written down there as well. Okay, that was question 2. Let's move on to question number 3. Now, question 3 is a little bit more complicated, but only because it's a subtraction instead of an addition. So question 3, Tammy was very late for her appointment. She arrived at 10:15, but should have arrived 1 hour and 35 minutes earlier. What time was Tammy's appointment? Now, like all of these questions, our very first step is to write the starting time. And the starting time is 10:15 a.m. Now, she should have arrived 1 hour and 35 minutes earlier. And the key word there is earlier. That tells us that we have to subtract because we're going back in time. And we're going back or subtracting 1 hour, and we're also subtracting 35 minutes. Now the best thing we can do here is to do our hour first. So 10:15 minus 1 hour, well 1 hour before 10:15 is going to be 9:15 a.m. We still need to subtract our 35 minutes. Now, it's not very easy to subtract 35 minutes from 15 because then we'll be going into that previous hour, which is the 8. So what we should do is go backwards to our nearest hour before 9:15. And the nearest hour before 9:15 is 9 o'clock. So we have taken away 15 minutes from both of those. So we've gotten rid of the 15 over here. That's become 9 a.m. So we also need to take away 15 from there. So when we've taken away 15 minutes from 35, we're left with 20 minutes left. So because we didn't take away that whole 35 from the beginning, we need to remember we still need to take away 20 more minutes to get the correct answer. And now it's a little bit easier. 9 a.m. minus 20 minutes. We go back into the 8 and it will be 8:40 a.m. And so our final answer, therefore, Tammy's appointment should have been 8:40 a.m. And that's how we do that question. So once again, we break it up into checkpoints. We go from 9:15 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then we subtract that left over there. So the only extra complicated bit there was that we had to subtract and we had to break it down into checkpoints going backwards instead of going forwards.